Your college basketball weekend is here.
Rise and fire. Count it.
Instant classic.
The slipper still fits.
When they need baskets, they go to them.
2 to tie, and 3 will win it.
From Cinderella runs to covering at the buzzer, we've got your winning playbook covered. This is BetQL U with John Martin and RJ Choppy, presented by BetMGM.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into BetQL U, getting ready for the college basketball weekend ahead. We are now officially, mid-February? So we are basically a month away from the NCAA tournament. Things are getting real in college basketball. We have our first high major firing. So the carousel has already gotten started, did not even wait until after the NCAA tournament. And as always, I'm going to preview a big weekend slate. I'm John Martin here today, as always, joined by my man RJ Choppy. Producer Zac going to join us a little bit later. RJ, what's happening, brother?
Yo, man, back from Vegas. Still trying to catch up on sleep. I know there's no such thing, but yeah, we're back. We're ready to go.
Yeah, I feel like I too feel like I've been in Vegas. I have not been in Vegas. I've been at home, but I just welcomed my newborn son on Tuesday morning, and I have not had any sleep since Monday night. So, yeah, this has been – and that's part of it, right? It's what you sign up for. But it's definitely you feel it. But I do feel like, I've been in Vegas a few times, RJ, and I feel like it builds you, prepares you for this moment, because you don't sleep when you're out there either.
No, you don't sleep at all. The guys I do a show with, I do a morning show here in Dallas Fort Worth. They always ask, like, how do you not take a nap during the day? And it's like I've been to Vegas like 40 times, man. Like it just doesn't affect me. Tiger blood, just you roll with it. The same thing with the kids, right? You got kids. If you've had kids, you don't sleep. There's no such thing as catching up on sleep on the weekends. No, man, you got to wake up at 5:30 because they got a flag football game at 7:15.
No, it's just kind of funny. Like before I had kids, like I was like I like prided myself on how young I looked, and ever since I had kids, like I've aged like a banana. I've aged like an expired banana, and so that's the trade-off. You know what I mean?
Better than an avocado. You don't want an age like an avocado.
I used to be vivacious. I used to have no bags under my eyes. I used to be fresh faced, and now I look like what I am, which is a tired father of two. But that's neither here nor there. We got a lot to get to on the show today, RJ. This is obviously a college basketball show now. We have pivoted fully to college basketball, and earlier in the week, a couple of things to touch on in terms of the games themselves. Number 21 ranked Virginia, just as sort of they started to pick up a lot of steam as one of those teams that, hey, we need to watch out for this Virginia team. Is this going to be a Tony Bennett special here? They had won 8 in a row. They lose to Pitt at home as a 7.5-point favorite. Is that reality catching up to Virginia? Or is it just one of those things where in conference play you're going to drop some? Like, where do you sort of come down on that result with Virginia, RJ?
I don't know that it's reality for them. You're going to drop games to teams that you probably shouldn't. Again, these are kids. Now the problem with this, it was a home game, right? That's a problem with this, and they had gone on a really, really nice stretch. Winning games on the road, winning games at home. Sometimes this is one of those things, it's a coach's dream where you lose to a team you shouldn't lose to, and they get to really go to work on you over the next couple of days. And that, I think, is what happened here. Maybe they read their press clippings. They're like, okay, we're out of the woods here. We're going to be a tournament team. We're kind of settling in. And then, bam, you look up at the scoreboard, and you're down 11 with 4 minutes to go with the first half, right? It's like, okay, how'd this happen? Now you're playing catch up the rest of the game, and you can just never catch up. So I think this is more of just a slip up, really.
Yeah, I I don't think this Virginia team is singularly talented. Most years they're not, right? Most years it's never about any one individual. They did have some NBA players. I think DeAndre Hunter was on that team that won the championship, but it's never really been about that. It's just been about they are going to play you in a way that nobody else is willing to do, which is keep these games in the 50s and low 60s. And when they can do that, I would definitely take them over most of the field just because nobody else plays that way. Here's the rub with that. If that's the way that you play, you don't get NBA types. You just don't, because who wants to sign up to play, that style? The other side of that, though, is if you can keep players in your program that learn how to win that way, you are deadly. You're a deadly team. And I know they're on the younger side, so that's not necessarily what we're talking about for today. But if I was a, I don't know where Virginia's going to wind up, on the seed line, but I would not want to see them if I'm a top 3 seed. Because if I have a bad day, RJ, Virginia is exactly the kind of team that will capitalize. They will actually make me have a bad day. And that's kind of the team I just do not ever want to see in the tournament.
Yeah, so look at take right now, for example, right? Lenardi has them as the 8th seed, all right, with UConn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, if you're UConn, do you want to run into them in the next round? No. There's a lot of 8 seeds
Absolutely not.
that I would much rather see. I would much rather see Michigan State. I'd much rather see Florida. I'd much rather see a Texas who's got athletes, good players.
Mm-hmm.
I'd much rather see St. Mary's. Virginia? No, man, they play a dirty. I don't say dirty. They play it. They want to draw you into the mud. They want to draw you into the mud.
They want to make it a mucked up game.
Yep.
I mean, that's where they operate. That's where they're comfortable.
Yeah,
it reminds me a little bit of
the 90s.
Absolutely. Now, look, the best teams can win in both ways, right? The best ones, but that doesn't mean that every high seed's capable of doing that. Like a North Carolina type of team, I think that's a team that you could pick off there. Obviously, they're in the same league, but that's kind of where I'm at. It reminds me a little bit 12 years ago when I was covering Memphis full time every single day. They had a team that had Will Barton on it, all conference type teams and players, I should say. And they ran into, God rest his soul, Rick Majerus and the St. Louis Billikens in the first round in the 8-9 game. And Memphis was it wasn't even close to talent. Supremely more talented, supremely more athletic. But St. Louis and Rick Majerus, they just beat you into submission, man. And I don't remember what the final score was. But by the end of it, Memphis hated each other. The players were arguing with each other coming out of the timeout. They didn't know what to do. That's what playing Virginia can be like. That's kind of – and that's what you don't want to have.
Remember the Utah Final Four run, where they had Andre Miller running the point, right? That was, 97 or whatever? I mean, they ran into a Carolina team that had Vince Carter and Antoine Jameson on it. I mean, there was no way that Utah should have won that game. But, Andre Miller turned out to be a 15-year pro, a good one at that, and they got dirty. They pushed the ball when they had to. They slowed it up when they wanted to, and Carolina never got going. They just never got going in that game. You can have those games. Virginia can do that to teams, especially if they get good guard play. This tournament's been around. It's been about good guard play for as long as I can remember. Basically, since the 3-point line came in, this has been about guards.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of the ACC, RJ, North Carolina, 7th-ranked team in America, goes down earlier this week on Tuesday night to Syracuse as an 8.5-point favorite. We talked a little bit about Virginia and sort of the grind of the season. Is that something that you feel like is hitting Carolina, just that wall? Like, hey, we know we've beaten some really good teams and they're just kind of bored with the season, or is there something maybe that is getting exposed in this stretch? Like, where do you sort of come down on what you're seeing from the heels here lately, RJ?
Yeah, because it's like they've lost to teams that, they really shouldn't have. Like, they shouldn't have lost to Georgia Tech. because Georgia Tech followed that up with an absolute stinker against Wake Forest.
Yeah.
One that I bet on. In Vegas. Thank you for that
Great
tip.
bet. Legendary
Yes,
bet.
fantastic bet. But, yeah, they haven't played great. Miami's not a great team. They barely beat them. They lose to Clemson. They had a good win against Duke. Maybe that Georgia Tech game was a look ahead because their very next game was against Duke. But that Syracuse loss, Syracuse is not a good team. And I know Jim Boeheim could come on and he could say how the ACC has like 8 conference NCAA tournament teams. They're just not very good. And there's not really a reason why you should be losing to them. You shouldn't. Not if you're a Final Four team. Now, every team's going to have their hiccups, right? But to have 2 hiccups in a week and a half, 2 weeks,
Yes.
It's not good. Not good this time of year.
Yeah, I struggle with them. I feel like you should think that they're a Final Four outfit, given some of the things that they've done, but I don't necessarily think that because they're so top heavy dependent, and I don't even think that extends to 3 players really too, RJ and Armando, and can they defend at the level that you have to defend at, to win it all? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to panic, but at the same time, I'm starting to sort of feel like this group does have a ceiling, and that's why, like, even at BetMGM, like they never really got major love in the national championship market, and I think that is probably why. Okay, other news before we get out of here for this first segment. We do have our first high major firing, and that is Ohio State's Chris Holtman. He was 137 and 85 in 6+ years there at Ohio State. Did make the tournament 4 times, but he never made a Sweet 16. Who knows what would have happened during COVID? But their best team, it felt like, as the 2 seed, they went down to Oral Roberts. So, in your mind, RJ, is this a great job at Ohio State? What do you just make of the decision and what happens from here?
Well, it tells you that they're serious about winning. If they're willing to pay out, $12, $13, $14 million on a coach on a buyout for college basketball. They're serious about winning. You know that. I think it's a pretty good job. It's it's like it's your standard upper echelon, not elite, but upper echelon Big Ten SEC job. It's not Kentucky. It's not, say, Carolina, Duke, Kansas, not your blue blood, but it's in your next tier, right? It's Michigan. It's a good job. It's a solid college basketball job. You have that job, you can retire there, right? You win, you're good. I think it's a job that will have a lot of takers. It would not surprise. I think the most obvious choice for me, I'm just going down to Cincinnati and going to Xavier. I'm getting Sean Miller. That's who I would go get. He knows the state. He has succeeded at the Power 5 level, and he had some issues there at Arizona. But I mean, let's be fair; those issues are gone away. The way the new NCAA is, that's kind of where I would lean. I think it's a great job. I think Dusty May would be great for it. I think Nate Oates, if he wanted to leave Alabama, would be good for it. There's a lot of options they've got there at Ohio State.
Yeah, I think obviously he'd be probably my first call. Also, Dusty May at FAU. Dusty May is going to have his pick, of Ohio State or Indy. I think Dusty May is amazing. I think if you can assemble that team at a place like FAU, which has legitimately no history, no tradition at all. I know that FAU has not had the back-to-back season that people hoped or expected. But I would also caution you that it's February 15th, and that's a team that could very well be there at the end of it all, just like they were a year ago. So I think those are the two, though. And I agree with you. I think it's the way it goes now is just like, what's your NIL? And I'll tell you how good your job is. You know what I mean? I think it's pretty much that simple in 2024. And I think the NIL is good at Ohio State. And if they're willing to fire a coach in the middle of the year, I think that sort of, as you said, speaks to the urgency. So they can get who they want. It's that type of job, and that makes it a good job. All right, we'll come back. We're going to go over the trust tree. There's some criteria we know that pretty much always determines the national champion in college basketball. And we'll see of the teams that meet it, which we trust. We'll do that and more. You're watching BetQL U on the BetQL Network.
You've been listening to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app. Let's get back to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM.
All right, welcome back to BetQL U here as part of Odyssey Sports. The BetQL Network can be found on YouTube. It can be found on Twitch. We air every weekend throughout the college basketball season, helping get you ready for, of course, the tournament run. Listen, turns out, RJ, we have a basketball botanist on staff here, our producer Zac, and every single year, I'll just let him explain it. Zac, welcome to the show as always. Tell us how you have formed your trust tree here.
Yes, guys. So I wanted to say, when it comes to college basketball and what exactly the criteria is for the teams that have won national championships over the course of the last 2 decades, I found some very interesting information. And I'll start off by saying that 18 of the last 20 teams that have won national championships have ranked in the top 20 in offensive or adjusted offensive efficiency and in the top 20 of adjusted defensive efficiency. And I did some research on KenPom. Anyone who's a college basketball fan knows just how important, just how helpful that tool is. And I wanted to go over some teams with you guys that either fall into that criteria right now, again, ranked top 20 in adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency, or teams that rank in the top 20 in one category and are right on the outside. And I want to see
now,
how you guys...
Before we get into the teams, Zach, I want to ask, do you know if this is ranked in those categories at the start of the tournament? Is it at any, like what's the cutoff? Because I know UConn last year, for example, I don't think they hit that until like the very tail end of the year. They were not that for most of it, right?
Yeah, at the start of the tournament, this is. So right on
Gotcha.
Selection Sunday.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the first team I wanted to start off with, you guys, is, of course, the team that's going to have all of the pressure on them when it comes to the tournament this year, and that's Purdue. They rank number 2 in adjusted offensive efficiency and number 14 in defensive efficiency. And keep in mind, even though this is going to be a team that is likely going to be a number 1 seed, Matt Painter, we know as a coach, he just has not really been able to get the job done in the NCAA tournament. In the last 3 big dances, Purdue has lost to double-digit seeds. RJ, I'll start with you. Do you trust Purdue or not?
I do. I think their backcourt is better than it has been. I think the players have improved. I will say this: and Edie's it's a good free throw shooter, and I think that plays into it. You know, you get into these situations and you can just kind of hack a shack your way. You can't really do that with Purdue. They've passed the eye test. They've passed the metric test. I think they're a really good team. Are they they would not probably be my favorites to win, but I think they're a legitimate team. Now, that said, you can knock them off. If Zac gets 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the game, the entire game changes. He's out for the rest of the half. You have a chance. That's what it's going to take. You're going to have to get him into foul trouble. You could do it. You absolutely can do it. It's just going to be difficult. If he doesn't get his 3rd foul until about 10 minutes to go in the game, you're in trouble. You're going to be in trouble.
John?
Yeah, I have some trust in Purdue. I'm not all the way there. I have some. I think that was an option. So I think that's I appreciate having the cop-out option here. Because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I agree with a lot of what RJ just said. I mean, their backcourt with the addition of Lance Jones is better. Braden Smith's a year older. You know, they're a heady, high IQ basketball team, and you add a guy like Lance Jones, who I watched pretty much the full game against Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, going on the road there in a desperation spot that Wisconsin really needed. Purdue was just they were killers, honestly. I mean, it was kind of cold blood the way they went in there and handled that. So I think that's a new level for them because that's what you wondered about. with that being said, they did rely in that game a lot on their jump shots. And they don't really have any downhill creator, any downhill athlete that can get to the rim, and sort of force the issue in that way. So that's the only area where I feel like they can be exploited is if they just have a bad night from the field. But I still think it's a good enough team to certainly exercise the demons of going out in the first round. I mean, I think at worst they're probably a Sweet 16 team, and that's at the absolute worst. So I would say I have some trust in them.
One thing I'd say with them as well is their guards are a year older. I think last year that was a big thing that kind of put a lot of people off, was that they had 2 freshman guards, and Braden Smith, he's one of the best guards in the country. I think they go as he goes. The next team I wanted to run by you guys is Arizona. And it's funny with them, this is another team kind of similar to Purdue. They were upset early in the tournament last year, and they had some moments this year throughout conference play that kind of got you a little bit nervous, losing on the road to Stanford, one of those results. But I was really impressed with what they did this past week, going on the road to Utah and Colorado, one of the hardest road trips in college basketball, and picking up 2 impressive victories. Right now, they rank number 4 in offensive efficiency, number 15 in defensive efficiency. John, I'll keep it with you. What do you think about Arizona?
Absolutely, all the way. I'm ready to propose. I mean, I love this damn team. I really think they have the ingredients to win it all. Caleb Love is one of the most scrutinized players in college basketball, and his numbers have never been better for his career. That happens sometimes. Sometimes you're just in a situation that you have to get out of for one reason or another, and you got to go somewhere else to thrive, and he's doing it. His career, he's up from the floor, from 3. His turnovers are down. His points are up. He's just a great fit. And Boswell's a year older. I love this team a lot. You're bringing guys like Jaden Bradley off the bench. This Arizona team, they kind of got the moniker, it feels like, perceptionally, as like the West Coast version of Purdue, but that ain't going to happen to this Arizona team. I think they're going to be in Phoenix in the Final Four, and I see no real reason why they can't win it all. So it's way trust. Love this team.
RJ?
Yeah, I trust them too. My only hesitancy would be is if they really haven't beat a great team lately. Like they haven't had anybody on their schedule lately that's really, really great. They lose to Florida Atlantic. They lose to Purdue. But then they beat Duke, right? And that was earlier in the year, and Duke was struggling earlier in the year. But I guess that would be my hesitancy. But, I mean, they have all the makings of a really good team. They've got good guard play. They've got enough size, and they can and they're just talented all in general. And plus, their route to the Final Four is going to be, they're going to be able to play out in L.A. It's not far. It's going to be a very pro Arizona crowd. And then, of course, they got basically a home court advantage in the Final Four. So I'm going to buy in.
All right, we will go to the SEC next, and I wanted to talk about Auburn. This is a team that ranks number 16 right now in offensive efficiency and number 4 in defensive efficiency. And I watched them a little bit on Wednesday night against South Carolina. They just dominated them from start to finish. And one thing I'll say about Auburn is they're a team, to me, I feel like when they're playing at their best, they could beat anyone in the country. They almost remind me a little bit of UConn last year, but the question is consistency. Can they just show that gear consistently throughout a 6-game stretch? RJ, I know you're the SEC guy. I'll keep it with you. What do you think about Auburn?
Man, I think Auburn's a really solid squad, and that Florida game threw me off for a little bit because I just don't think they got up for it. And, they also lose. But, again, that was a road game. They have not played great on the road. That's their bugaboo, is that they have failed on the road in big games. Good news is they don't have to go on the road in the tournament. They're all neutral site games. I love Bruce Pearl. I'm a huge Bruce Pearl fan. I don't think Bruce he gets his team up for the big games, right? Like he will get them going for the big games. I don't think he's the greatest tactician, but he doesn't necessarily need to be. They'll make a run. They're a solid team. I don't know if they're a title contender. I don't know their talent is on the level of, say, Purdue or UConn, but they're definitely a good team, and they could definitely make a Final Four run.
John?
Yeah, I'm gonna say some trust, and I think the most what's really keeping me and I when I'm evaluating these things, it's a big factor for me is what you do away from home. Auburn is unbelievable at home. They're like Iowa State, right? Iowa State's home court advantage, Kansas home court advantage, like all that's fantastic, and it's going to help you in the regular season. And teams are not going to want to play there and all of that. But the tournament is not played in Auburn, Alabama, right? It's just not. What are you doing away from there? And the results have been very much mixed for them. The talent is definitely there to go on an Elite Eight type of run. I mean, Bruce has gotten the Final Four with Auburn. So, I'm trying to figure out, is trust me, they trust them to win a national championship? I would say no. I trust them, as RJ said, to make a second weekend type of run, and it even wouldn't shock me if they wind up in Phoenix. But I just feel like the results aren't quite where I would want them to be away from Auburn to really get involved with them from a national championship perspective. Arizona, for example, we know that. They've done that. They've played big games away from home on a neutral. They've been tested and been successful in a way that I'm still kind of waiting for with Auburn.
Okay, we will now take a look at some teams that, again, they're top 20 in one category, and even though they're not top 20 in the other, they're right on the fringe, and by the time we do get to Selection Sunday, they could definitely find themselves in the 2020 club. Let me ask you guys about Creighton. This is a team that made the Elite Eight last year. They currently rank number 17 in offensive efficiency, number 30 in defensive efficiency. But they've had some head-scratching losses over the course of the last few weeks. They have most of that team back from last year that made the Elite Eight as well. RJ, I'll throw it over to you. What do you think of Creighton?
I like Creighton. I don't know that Creighton is – I'm not going to pick them to make a Final Four run, but I think Creighton is a second weekend team. I think that they can make the second weekend. It's going to come down to draw, obviously. But, yeah, I think Creighton's a good solid, middle of the seed line type squad that a big boy doesn't want to play. I think they're a really good team. They're well coached. I kind of like them. I don't love them, but I like them.
Creighton's a big boy, RJ. And I mean, they are a big boy. You know, I get it, but they are one of them. I will say I agree with everything that you just laid out. Creighton, and I watch them pretty much every game because one of my best friend's son is on the team, Mason Miller. So I watch pretty much all their games. I've been to their games. I was there when they lost to UNLV. And the thing with Creighton, they drive me up the freaking wall, man, because they can look unbeatable sometimes. And then they can run into a tough athletic team and get kind of out-physicaled and get run out of the building. Here's what I would say. I trust Creighton against a team that doesn't have an athletic big. But if they have somebody that can really effectively guard the screen and roll with Ryan Kalkbrenner, like that Xavier game was a perfect example. They could not slow him down. He was just getting to the rim every time off that roll, and Xavier had no answer for it. They don't have a big man. You know, if you're a team that does, you can have success against Creighton because they really lean on two things, 3-shot and Kalkbrenner rolling. If you take at least one of those things out with Kalkbrenner rolling, could be a long night for Creighton. So I'm going to say I trust them some, but it really, really is dependent on the matchup for them.
Okay, before we get out of here, guys, I will say this. We have about 90 seconds left. Are there any other teams that that are in one category in the top 20 but just missed in the other that we want to hit on quickly? We have Creighton, who we just hit on, BYU, Duke, Marquette, Wisconsin, Michigan State, New Mexico, and Iowa State. Do we feel a strong way about any of those teams before we get out of here?
I really want to love Duke. I don't know where you are on them, RJ, but Jerry McCain, to me, is showing that he might have a chance to be one of the best guards in college basketball. I just don't know if you can get away with playing Filipowski at the 5 and Ryan Young at the 5, you know, in high leverage games. But the guard play, I feel like can get a lot better still. I want to love them, but I just worry about Filipowski at the 5 long term.
I worry about him too. I'll tell you, BYU is a team. If you go through that Big 12, which is a nightmare, you get through that and you're basically not getting – they haven't really been upset They've only lost to teams that are just a little bit better than them when they go up in weight class. I think they're really good. I think they're a really sound basketball team. I don't think that they're obviously going to make too many waves, but I think if BYU finds a way to get a favorable draw, they can win a game or two. I think BYU might be falling in that just missed bracket for me.
Yeah. All right, we're going to preview the Saturday slate, the weekend slate when we come back. There's some intriguing matchups. Is it the best slate ever? It's not, but there's still definitely some compelling matchups on the schedule, and we'll give out some picks and some previews when we come back. You're watching BetQL U here on the BetQL Network. Back after this.
You've been listening to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app. Let's get back to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM.
Welcome back to BetQL U. Big college basketball slate this weekend, as always. And let's go over it, RJ, as we always do. And as we always tell you, these are KenPom projected lines. Sometimes these numbers are totally different. Sometimes they are right on them. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, this is an interesting one to kick it off. We'll start in the noon hour. Both teams coming off of L's. Wake Forest at Virginia, RJ. Virginia projected -1.
Man, I bet against Wake Forest one time this year, and that was when they were a 5-point favorite over Georgia Tech. I am not making that mistake again. Give me Wake Forest and the point. I'll take the point there, and I'll take the Deeks.
I had Duke -7 against Wake Forest the other night. I don't know if you guys happen to see the ending in that one. It was quite controversial in terms of the spread. Did either of you guys see that?
No,
Mark
I didn't
Mitchell.
see that.
Mark Mitchell gets the ball with Duke up 7, and Wake Forest is not going to foul, right? He happens to be in transition. He dunks the ball with like 12 seconds left and the shot clock off to put Duke up by 9. So if you had Wake Forest -7, Wake Forest +7, Wake Forest +7.5, you went from a winner to a loser, or pushed and a winner to a loser on both. But here's the other thing. Here's the crazy part about it. Duke actually fouled on the trip up, and it was a 1-and-1, right? But Duke didn't know that. So he misses the first one. Filipowski rebounds it, doesn't do anything. The shooter comes over, steals the ball with no one from Duke even reacting, but he loses it out of bounds after he steals it. Like it was, and Duke just dribbles it out. And that's why sports betting's hard. That's why it's very difficult, because of a situation like that. I like Virginia. I like Virginia to bounce back. I think Wake Forest is really way too dependent on the three. And they were brutal against Duke. They were just brutal. And when it doesn't go on the road, it can get ugly in a hurry. So I am just going to take the home team in this one. All right, moving on. Texas Tech at number 10 ranked Iowa State. Iowa State -6, RJ.
I like Iowa State to win this one, but I'm going to take Tech in the points. I think I don't think they're terrible, and when they've played, good teams, look, they Tech has Iowa State. They've lost. They lost to BYU. They lost to Oklahoma. Then again, they beat Texas. They beat TCU. I think this is a game that Iowa State wins. I don't know that they cover. I wouldn't touch the spread from Iowa State perspective. Yeah. Much more likely to touch it on the Red Raiders side.
I do want to hit this last game of the noon window here because it is SEC country. Texas A&M on the road at number 15 ranked Alabama. Alabama -10, RJ.
Too many points, man. Too many points when another team's got good players. A&M's got good players on their team. They can put up a stinker on you. We saw them last week. I mean, they destroyed Tennessee. And I think Tennessee's probably a little bit – they're about the same, maybe a little better than Alabama. I'll take A&M. You're going to give me 10? You're going to give me 10 points? I'm going to take them.
I am in total agreement. I don't think you're going to get 10 is my guess. I think this is probably going to be something that's closer to 6.5, 7. That would ultimately be where I believe this winds up, because the market and KenPom have not been agreeing. They just haven't this year. And so I think you're going to see a little bit of a difference in the line here. All right. Let's stay in the SEC, RJ. We have number 22 ranked Kentucky at number 13 ranked Auburn. Kentucky finally gets it right. They get things right with Ole Miss earlier in the week. Auburn, as we know, destroyed South Carolina, who was flying high, just destroyed everything they stood for. And that number is now projected Auburn -10.
Dude, that's a lot of points, but they play really well at home. Really well. I'm actually gonna take Auburn in the 10 here. I mean, this is I think this is a Kentucky team that doesn't know what they're getting night to night. They don't know, and neither does Cal. They have no idea who they're gonna be. Auburn, when they play at home, that they're gonna be they're a juggernaut, man, at home. So give me Auburn in the 10. It's a lot of points. It's a lot of points to give up to those kids. Again, that line's probably not gonna be 10. But that's a lot of points to give those kids.
Yeah, two things on this one real quick. I was on Kentucky -8.5 against Ole Miss. I know there are a lot of people on Ole Miss, but I like that game at home because Ole Miss, where Kentucky really struggles, where you can really get them, it's where Gonzaga got them. It's where a lot of teams have been getting them, is on their interior. They just don't fare well against bigs that can get it done and produce at a high level. And Ole Miss does not have those. Auburn does. Jani Broome is one of the best in the country, and I just think this is going to be a long night for those young Kentucky bigs. That's just kind of how I feel about it. So I know Kentucky's still trying to find that mix. I don't think Big Z played against Ole Miss. So I think they're still trying to find that mix of which guys, whether it's Onyesu or whether it's Bradshaw or whoever it may be. Trey Mitchell got banged up and he didn't come back with a shoulder injury. So it is a lot of points. Reed Shepherd can go off, but Auburn at home with their big play, I just think this is an Auburn team that's going to cover that number, is my guess. So I will take the Auburn -10. Okay, a couple more here, RJ. This probably is the game of the weekend, just on paper. Number 4 ranked Marquette at number 1 ranked UConn. UConn on the KenPom projection -7.
I'm going to bet. I am not betting against UConn for a very long time. I just won't do it. That team is on a mission, man. I feel bad for anybody going up against UConn right now. I mean, they're not beating teams. They're taking their soul. They really are. They are. I have to go back. I'm like, all right, how did they lose? How did they lose to Seton Hall? Like, I know they're all healthy now, and they got guys that they're finally hitting shots. Now, are they playing a juggernaut schedule? No, but it's a good enough one. I mean, they got several tournament teams that they have just run through. I'm going to take UConn. I'm going to take UConn here. Too good.
I don't really like Marquette, man. I don't like them. I mean, I just never really have bought them. And I told you guys I have my new religion is never betting against UConn. Not necessarily betting them every game, but never betting against them. And 7 does feel like the tippy top range of what I would ever want to get involved in. But I'm not. That's not a spot I want to get involved in. And I know Marquette is hot. I get it. I understand that they are, playing their best basketball at the right time. But I just, for whatever reason, I just don't feel it with them. As a top 5 team goes, and again, I can't even quantify it really because they have a lot of what you look for. They have great point guard play. They have some guys that do all the intangibles. Cam Jones from Memphis lighting it up. But I don't know. It just feels like there's a little something missing with them. And I know seems like a vapid thing to say because I'm not even quantifying it. But you'll see what I'm talking about in about a month and a half. All right?
Yeah,
You're going to see.
Look at their last 8 games. Their last 8 games, they've beat Villanova twice and St. John's twice. That's half their wins. Another one's
Right.
against Georgetown. Georgetown is awful.
Yes.
DePaul is
An amazing program, the best in the country.
best
They're on their
program
way
in the
back.
country. And then Seton Hall.
Right.
All right.
One good win in there. I mean, maybe two at St. John's. And I
Yeah,
guess
at St. John's.
Villanova.
And,
So 3.
yeah, okay.
3 of 8.
And those are fine wins. But I mean, their win against Creighton I thought was much better. But then they go on the road, they lose to Seton Hall, they lose to Butler. All right, they beat Texas, cool. That's a revenge game for Shaka. They lose to Purdue, they beat Kansas. That was earlier in the year. They beat Illinois too. I don't know, man. Like they're good, but I think a lot of their late surge has been, beaten up against garbage.
Yeah, schedule thing. Then the last game I want to hit with you, RJ. It is a rematch game. It's Texas at number 3 ranked Houston. Houston minus 11 at Ken Palm. Can Texas find a way to keep this one interesting?
Well, they did. They did when they were playing at home against Houston a couple of weeks back, and Houston was down 12 in that game. Winds up winning. I don't think Houston's going to slip up again. No, I don't think Texas can keep it close enough to scare them. I mean, they may lose, by 6 or 8 points, but I think more likely than that is that they lose by 11 to 13, somewhere in there. I think Texas is a good team, but Houston is just they're a borderline great team. They're one that I keep forgetting about. I'll be honest with you, because they don't play a flashy style of basketball. I'm not sitting around I'm not betting on them very often, because usually there's not a whole lot of value there with their number. But I think they're a dangerous team.
And then finally, real quick before we get out of here, NCAA football 25.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm ready. I am ready. I just got the letter. I've been hired as the Akron Zips head coach for the 2020. Yeah. I'm gonna take over for Akron. I thought about Bowling Green. I did UConn. Took UConn to the championship one year. You know what? I may turn the Akron job down and just go Coastal Carolina. I want to play in that teal blue turf, baby. I'm ready.
There. Yeah, it'll be cool. I am anxious to see, do you get a chance to convince guys not to enter the portal? Do you talk to the NIL collectives? What's the limit here going to be in terms of the immersiveness? It needs to have that. Yeah. It needs to have that, because the game has changed the last. So
I'll tell you this, man. I'm gonna manage. I'm gonna be a coach just like Dabo. I'm going to ignore the portal. I'm just going to win without the portal, and I'm going to win without the NIL. I'm going to take us back to the Stone Age. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dominate this thing, man. I'm terrible at MLB The Show. I can't play FIFA. The golf, PGA Tour golf, I'm just awful at. I don't even bother with Madden anymore. It's a terrible game. But this one, I'm going to master this, just like I did back in the day. Nebraska, you're bringing back the triple option, baby, and we're going to make it work.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, with the release of that one. Hey, that's going to do it for us on this one. BetQL U on the BetQL network. Catch us on Odyssey, catch us on YouTube, catch us on Twitch, wherever you get your content. Appreciate you spending the week with us. For RJ Choppy, I'm John Martin.
You've been listening to BetQL U, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.